very interesting observation that you can make from this conversation released by the Indian media themselves. And one thing I would like to point out, Faisal, again is that the so-called terrorist whom they show as a Pakistani walking around carrying a gun was actually wearing a saffron band on his hand.
Orange band.
That orange band. And that orange band is called Kalawa. And if you go to the Wikipedia even, search what Kalawa is, and it categorically says it's a Zionist Hindu religious band worn for protection. And it is an orange-yellow mix with different connotations. And interestingly, no Muslim on earth would wear a saffron band. Saffron is not even an ordinary Hindu band. It's a band representing the hardcore Zionist extremist ideology. And this is something fascinating again, because the man they are presenting to be Pakistanis are either speaking Marathi or speaking Hindi or wearing saffron bands, and still their Indians are trying. And this is, everything happened within the heat of the moments, because they could not control the media at that time. Lots of things kept coming. And we recorded that. And this we have documented that now. All Indian and Western sources. Not a single Pakistani source we have quoted here. Now,
Zaid, what we'll do is we'll just take a break here, and we'll come back after this short break. Stay with us. Don't miss today's episode of Brass Tacks. This known journalist, Indian journalist Ramesh Mishra, has written a couple of very interesting stories regarding this particular episode. I would like you to throw light on them.
You see, what happens is, whenever we Pakistanis says this act of terror in Mumbai was done by Mossad, raw RSS nexus, everybody would blame us to be as biased. So let's take the Indian and the Western sources.
Okay.
Ramesh Mishra, as I said, he is a secular Indian, the good Indian. He has done some, because he is genuinely concerned about his Indian Federation, about his country, which is being taken over by Mossad and raw nexus, by Zionist nexus.
By the extremists, basically.
By extremists, actually. And Mishra is very genuinely concerned. And interestingly, the way the Hindus, fascists have been threatening the police officer Kurkure, even Mishra is now receiving death threats, and will not be surprised if he is eliminated by them. So Mishra wrote a series of articles after this particular incident which happened. And here he writes that Mumbai terror attack, further evidence of the Anglo-USA Mossad RSS nexus.
Yes.
This is stunning, because he is making it very categoric. The British, American, Israelis and Indian fascist agencies are involved in Mumbai. He does not say ISI, Lashkar-e-Taiba or Pakistan are involved. And it's not just that he's saying it. Andrew Marshall is a very respected writer. And Marshall says, the presence of foreign-looking, fair-skinned commandos who calmly gunned down dozens of people after drinking a few beers indicate that the Mumbai attack were likely the work of the Anglo-American covert intelligence operations, not indigenous Indian Muslims, or for that matter, Arab or Al-Qaeda terrorists. On another location, he says, because you know what happens is that eyewitness accounts categorically prove that this terrorist actually sat in a cafe first, drank beer, bought lots of beer for themselves, paid their bills, calmly came out, took out their guns, started to fire, and they were blonde-looking Westerners. They were not, as Marshall is saying this categorically. And these reports have been corroborated by the police officers as well. The police officers who went into that Jewish house, he says, I was shocked and surprised. I thought they would be terrorists like us. They would be people Indian looking, but they were Westerners, blondes, and they fired back on us, and then we fired back.
Who were they?
This is the stunning part. They were the Mossad operatives. They were operating, because this is what the history, the other reports of the Nariman house and the Chabal house suggested very categorically, that dozens of people were staying in that house for a very long period of time. Indian media,
Nariman house.
In the Nariman house, in the Jewish house, which primarily was a Jewish headquarters, which was a Mossad headquarters for covert operations, for drawing up this entire plan again.
For carrying out all this terrorist activity,
exactly.
Basically. Okay.
And Marshall also says, you see, that it is clearly saying that these terrorists look like Anglo-American covert operatives. Use this word. Understand this word. These were not Lashkar-e-Taiba operatives. They were Anglo-American covert ops. Now, and also, the police officer who entered the Nariman house says, I went into the building last night. I was shocked because they were white. I was expecting them to look like us. They fired 3 shots. I fired 10 back. Now this is a police officer eyewitness account. He was engaged in operations on that day.
Okay.
Now, The Nariman House affairs bring Mossad angle to the fore. I'm not saying this, Misra is saying this again. And again then he writes, people do not understand Zionism will never be able to understand what happened in Mumbai. This is very stunning statement because people need to understand what Zionism is, whether Jewish Zionism or Christian Zionism or Hindu Zionism.
Okay, I've got a question for you. It also says, because right, the last paragraph of page number 35 of your dossier, right? It says that the two people who were killed in that Nariman house one was Rabbi Gabriel and his wife Rivka. They ran the center as spokespersons of the Chabad Lubavitch movement. What is this Chabad Lubavitch movement?
This is one of the Jewish movements. Without getting into the detail, let me add you another interesting and strange information. The Jewish rabbi and his wife were also raped before they were killed. And this information, and not just here, in the Taj Hotel also, in other places, the guests were raped also, but not at the place where they were kept hostages supposedly, at places where there were no terrorists. So what was happening is basically using the target of opportunity. Lots of goons were out, lots of covert ops were there who were making good use of the opportunity for doing so much of things. And why the Zionists would kill two Jews? This is the answer that Misra gives. And he quotes a very interesting statement here. Very, very interesting statement here from David Ben Gurion. David Ben Gurion was the founding father of Israel.
Okay.
And he stated that he would sacrifice German Jewish children for the sake of Zionism. You see, this is very common for Jews. This is very common for Zionists to kill Jews. There are so many good Jews around.
Yeah.
There are so many good Jews who do not accept Zionism and Israel as a state. Zionist as an ideology, Israel as a state. They do not accept it. Just like there are some very good Indians also, just like Misra, just like Kurkure, who do not accept fascist ideologies of Hindutva or Hindu fascism.
And I'm just supporting your own comment here. It says people who do not understand Zionism will never be able to understand what happened in Mumbai. Why?
You see, the fact is,
something like this?
You see, Western world knows Gandhi very well. A symbol of peace, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who killed Gandhi?
As Hindu extremist.
Hindu extremist, Hindu Zionist. This is what people don't understand, people don't know. The same Hindu extremists from RSS and Bajrang Dal, the people who killed Kurkure, the people who committed this Mumbai atrocity, they killed Gandhi. Then also they were fascist, now also they are fascist. The difference is that now they have taken over the state, the Indian military intelligence, Indian research and analysis wing, and basically the Indian nuclear assets. The world is much more dangerous place now because Indian fascists have become nuclear powers now.
It says Zionists have always used dead Jews to build sympathy for Zionist goals and as to cover for Zionist crimes against humanity.
See,
what an interesting statement.
What an interesting statement. See, the 6 million Jews supposedly killed by Hitler, the Zionist state still makes use of them, still uses those dead Jews to create a case for Israel. And if you have to kill a Jewish sect member and his wife to create a greater cause of destroying Pakistan, because this is exactly
inhuman.
How inhuman, but this is how the complex covert ops and geopolitics and black operations work. That's how the secret services work. That's how the Zionist ideology works. To ruthlessly kill hundreds and thousands of people. Look what Israelis are doing in Gaza right now. Is it humanity? Even the worst of the animals would not do what Israelis are doing in Gaza today. And this is the ideology which now the raw Indian intelligence services have adopted from Mossad. And the same operations killing their own people for a covert op. The objective was to divert the attention from themselves against Pakistan, to create a justification that Pakistan is a terrorist state and the world should get together against Pakistan. The objective of this entire exercise ultimately leading up to is against Pakistan. That's why they went into United Nations. That's why they're creating an environment that to justify that since Pakistan has been supporting these terrorist acts, hence Pakistan is a terrorist country sponsoring terrorism and should be put under sanctions and ultimately should be invaded. This is the ultimate game plan. And this is what the Mumbai drama stood for. We'll discuss this more later.
We'll move on. And now it says, now other reports have also confirmed that a huge mass of food was ordered by the residents of Nariman House. This food was enough for 30 to 40 people for several days. What's the story behind this?
You see, this is exactly the same thing we discussed earlier, that Jewish house was basically the headquarters for Mossad. And the reports are now confirming that dozens of people stayed in that house.